Quotation from myself, segment 78, quotation number 46. Exposed for the first time to the views of the ancient philosophers like Plato, Aristotle, for example, on the subjects of ethics, virtue, and morality, the modern reader, providing he can free himself from obligatory veneration, is struck by the unabashed sincerity of their profound egotism. How to win friends and influence people is as good as any summation of their ethical precepts, which in the main could be roughly considered as a manual on how to get to the top for the upwardly mobile young man of Athens. A kind of nobler, slightly more democratic version of Machiavellian prince. While the virtues are often confused with its abilities to successfully achieve the above-mentioned ambitions. Finally, the morality in the present sense of the word seems to be totally unknown to them, at least in theory, for all their writings are devoted to achieving one personal happiness, and they seem to be incapable of realization that ethics, virtue, and morality have nothing to do with personal happiness, but with the happiness of the others, that they are not self but outwardly directed and motivated by love, kindness, compassion, sympathy, and commiseration, and not by the desire of personal fulfillment and glory. It is hard to tell now, after almost 2,500 years have passed, what have caused such a moral blindness in the ancient philosophers. Perhaps the limitation of the times, perhaps their personalities. I suspect both. For as much as times make man, man makes the times, especially the man of Plato and Aristotle's stature. 947. I love you, and therefore I will try to do as much as I can to make you happy, and as little as possible to make you miserable. Is the expression of true love directed at somebody else. I love you, therefore I want you to do as much as you can to make me happy, and as little as possible to make me feel miserable. Is a pseudo-love, only disguised as love of somebody else, but in truth is nothing but love, most and foremost of oneself. 948. Do not poison the pleasure of giving by the resentment of not receiving. 949. If poetry is fire, then a poet is a firewood throwing himself into it to feed the flame, to keep it alive, until finally turning into ashes. 950. Our greatest enemy are not those who try to destroy us, but those who, wanting to destroy our convictions. For if they succeed, then we are left with nothing to fight, or for some even to live for. 951. Trying to make sense out of one's own life, either as a whole or just of some parts of it, no matter how small and insignificant, and to all appearance simple it is, isn't easy, judging by the experience of most men and women, probably impossible. Consequently, a lot of our problems, especially in the area of personal relationship, stem from the repeated, despite the almost invariable failures, attempts to do just that. That's to resolve them using common sense and natural logic. Perhaps then, to make our approach out of necessity, we should all take a clue from the early Christian theologians who, after struggling for 300 years and doing a lot of damage physical and otherwise to each other in the process, to reconcile the monotheism with doctrine of Trinity, were probably more than happy, few died hard notwithstanding, to obey Emperor Constantine's order to accept Nicene Creed of Trinity as given, whether it makes theological sense or not, and to defend it from then on by invoking concept of mystery, something beyond the human capacity to understand. And so will we, but following their example, do ourselves a great favor by accepting the human relationship as a mystery, unyielding to sensible resolution, and by learning like Christians to live with such an acceptance. 952. Women, a popular notion to the contrary, must be as lonely as men, always and rightly so thought to be. For their ostentatious sociability and friendliness toward each other is but a facade concealing the fierce rivalry and competition, which men seldom bother to disguise, their range of contention still being so much wider than women's. And when two women put a claim to one man, their veneer of civility is quickly blown away, and they will fight for this man tooth and nails, like two dogs over the bone. (953) Perhaps this feeling of being alone in a big cold world, which is so common to both men and women, is the result of each gender's unwillingness or inability to accept the other half of humanity as an integral and inseparable part of the whole, instead of only as a source of the potential sexual partners. 954. I have no doubt whatsoever that if the majority of the innocent victims of Nazi perpetrated Holocaust during the Second World War had been not the Jews but, say, the English or French or Dutch or any other nationality, the historical revisionists and the Holocaust deniers like Ernst Zundel and Company would have never found such a receptive and sympathetic audience as they enjoy now. Or considering the almost universally pervasive sentiments of anti-Semitism among the European nations, everyone feels somewhat implicated in the Nazis' atrocities toward the Jews, and constantly guilty, if not by commission then by omission, and tacit approval, even if only on a subconscious level. And it seemed that the easiest way to assuage the negative feeling of the collective guilt is to pretend, or perhaps even sincerely believe, that despite the overwhelming evidence to the contrary, genocidal extermination of the Jews either didn't happen or, if it did, then on a much smaller scale. To repeat again, if the millions If the millions of the English or French or Dutch, etc., had been slaughtered as the Jews had been, few people would believe, or even fewer would dare to say that it is not true. 9:55. When you are a passenger in somebody else's car, you go where the drivers go. The only way to go where you want to go is to get your own car and be your own driver. 9:56. The people one encounters most often on the street of Toronto could be roughly divided in two major categories, snobs and slobs. Or if one wants to be more precise and to give an all-embracing picture, two more subgroups could be added. Two more subgroups may be added. Snobbish slobs and slobbish snobs. 9:57. It should have happened sooner or later, and so it didn't come as no surprise. After the no-name cottage cheese, no-name spaghetti sauce, no-name laundry detergent, etc., etc., we are finally, no pun intended, offered no-name burial and cremation, or as the recent ad in newspaper put it, the dignified, modestly priced alternative to dealing with the commercial funeral homes. 9:58. One who grew up among the nasty and malicious people have only two choices: either to become as mean as they are, or to spend the rest of his life as a proverbial doormat, continuously abused and insulted by almost everybody else with impunity. 9:59. You can judge whether the members of a particular society peacefully coexist or live in a state of cold war with each other, by the amount of personal information they are willing to reveal voluntarily. For while one not only doesn't mind, but actually eager to talk openly to those believed to be allies and friends as a way of strengthening the bond, to tell too much about ourselves to the potential enemies is clearly foolhardy. And so it is quite natural that in a society where homo homini lupus est, people are so reluctant to talk without reserve about themselves and so nosy about the affairs of others. Consequently, the reverse is equally true. That is, if people are excessively secretive about their personal matters, it means they live in and are conditioned by the society based on the mutual fear rather than common trust.